Okay, so this is part one on the GlusterFS on Proxmox tutorial. So in this part, we'll be setting up an LXC container. So let me log into the Proxmox server here. Okay, so first of all, what is LXC? LXC is like Docker. Is a containerization platform like Docker, but where Docker is designed to be ephemeral, LXC is designed to be persistent. And Proxmox supports LXC natively. So obviously containerization requires less resources than virtual machines because they share a lot of resources with the VM. However, they do act as their own separate thing. So if the LXC container or if GlusterFS goes down, then it won't affect anything else on the system, including Kubernetes or Proxmox itself. Okay, so first of all, when you do this, you need to create. Well, you don't need to. You can store this on the local storage, but I set mine up to have multiple different, or to have like dedicated storage for the VMs and the LXC containers. And I did that with an LVM volume. I created it through the GUI, but you can view it here with this command. CTVM stands for container and volume, and virtual machine. So it's easy to do. You just dedicate a disk to it, but that's the name of it. So before we obviously create our VM or our container, we need to download the template for it. So these are the commands to do that. I'm already updated, so some of these I already have this downloaded, so these probably won't do anything. PCD list just shows the containers that I currently have. I have 100, and we'll be creating 101. So PVE AM updates the registry of available images. Then you just say PVE AM available section system. And this will show you all the images that you can use. I've tried a number of images. CentOS worked. Fedora was what I was going to use, but it had issues with networking. I also tried Alpine, but the clib that Alpine uses is not compatible with Gluster, and Ubuntu also had issues with networking. So CentOS is the one that worked, and so that's what we're going with. I probably already have this downloaded, but just to show you, let me just do this. Yep, so PVEAM list, local, and I have that downloaded. So, okay, so this long command here, that will install a container with ID 101 that we will run the GlusterFS inside of. So before I run this, there are a number of, there's a bunch of parameters here. I want to give a little tutorial on them so that you at least know what's going on. So first of all, nesting. This allows you to run a container within a container. I think we do need it. It says I think we don't need it, but I think we do for Gluster. I'm not 100% sure, but I wanted to give this, as many permissions as it wanted because this is kind of an important thing, and I don't think you can change this later. Make note, I know Gluster uses make node. What make node is essentially is, you know, when you have like, let's say you have like a disk SDA, and then sometimes it'll create like SDA1 under it. That's done using the make node command. Fuse is file system and user space. Gluster, you know, you can click on these Gluster docs here. Gluster uses Fuse. What that allows a file system to do is, instead of adding an actual kernel module, that you can create a file system without having to do that. So that's how Gluster is doing that. Storage equals CTVM. That just says to use the LVM storage that we created on that disk. On boot equals 1, or on boot 1 just says to start this container when Proxmox boots up. You need this networking stuff so that the container has networking, sets up a bridge network. Unprivileged equals 0. If we don't have this, then we can't device mount into the container. I think there is a way to do that without adding, like having a completely completely privileged container if you add udev rules, but I don't know how to do that, and it didn't seem worth investing the time because this is the only LXC container that I'm going to create. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this. And it'll install. Okay, so now we have, as you can see, 101 PCT start to start the container, and we'll enter it, and then make sure you can ping Google, and we can, and then if you, as you can see, we have no disks on this yet, which we will be device mounting them in, and you will see a disk there in the next tutorial. So one last thing, after this tutorial, if you're following along, you should really go into the command line, or go into the GUI and take a backup of this container. You can do this through the command line. I don't know exactly how. It's something I would like to put in this tutorial, but just go ahead and do that through the GUI, so that if, you know, the next part of the tutorial doesn't work out, or, you know, you do something weird on this container, you can just roll back to the state that it's in right now. All right, awesome. See you guys in part 2. Or actually, yeah, here's some references. This is a question about the networking in the Fedora container, because I would like to use Fedora instead of CentOS, but this mount point one should really be device mounting, but yeah, these are some good documentation. All right, see you guys in part 2.